Wish me luck. We're gonna read this, hopefully, eventually, soon. Hey friends and book lovers, welcome or welcome back. Today's video is one that I did last year, and I really enjoyed kind of the self-reflection of going through and doing this. So I wanted to bring it back this year and do it in the month of December before the holidays get here, and kind of go through the books that I wish I had read this year. These are books that could have been on my list of books that I had to read this year or that I wanted to read this year, or they could have just been books that I really thought about a lot or put on many TBRs but never got to, or heard about a lot and never got to read them myself. But again, just heard about them a lot on BookTube and other platforms, friends, etc. So these are the books that I wish I read this year. Let's get into it. So the first one is one that I wanted to finish this year. I started this book a really long time ago, and I got so far. I think I only had like 100 and something pages left, and I didn't finish it. This was definitely a soft DNF because I remember really enjoying this book. So I don't know if I'm gonna start it from the beginning or just kind of start it from where I left off, or just kind of start at the beginning and skim it when I reread this, or at least reread the beginning so that I can finally finish it. But that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I read The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern earlier this year. I think that was a buddy read, and honestly it took me so long to get through because the writing was so dense and because the story was so dense and convoluted. It was super interesting, but definitely a book that I think some would describe like a fine wine. You have to read it a little bit every day and not binge it. This one, I felt like I was so intrigued and it was so compelling. Definitely easier to read, easier to binge rather, than The Starless Sea, but I never got around to finishing this, and I had this little subconscious goal that I would finish it this year and just kind of add it to my list of books read, instead of like that one book on my shelf that's been a soft DNF for no good reason for such a long time. I think years at this point. I remember picking this up at an airport and being like, this looks so good, and reading it and then having 100 pages left and not finishing it because life got in the way. So I hope that this can still be a little goal that I have, and that I can reread and finish this in the near future. But this is one that I really wish that I had dove into and finished off in this year. All right, this next one has purely been on way too many TBRs and probably doesn't deserve to be another video of mine, but it's one that I have had on my shelf for quite a while now, but I still really want to read. It's not a long book, it's a standalone as well, and I don't know why I haven't gotten to it, but I haven't gotten to it. It's definitely up my alley in terms of the genre and the subgenre, and that is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. This is like a YA hate to love type of fantasy romance that I think is like a Little Mermaid type of retelling, but with more daggers and violence and stabbiness. So I have wanted to read this. This has been on so many TBRs, and I don't know why I don't just go for it, because this would be one of those books that's such an fun, at least I imagine it to be a fun kind of break between the more serious, epic, high fantasy that I'm reading right now. So hopefully this will go on to one of my TBRs soon, and it can just be like a fun break, something kind of fun to read and that I'll really enjoy it, because I see myself rereading this if I really enjoy it, because I did always love The Little Mermaid. It wasn't my #1 cartoon when I was growing up, but it was one that I loved watching and I would watch over and over again. I loved the music for it. So I feel like if this is a retelling, I'll probably really enjoy it, because I really enjoyed that story in general. So hopefully we'll get to this soon, but I do wish I'd read it this year. All right, this next one is a beast, but honestly, just hearing all the people that have talked about it, hearing how wonderful the author is and how wonderful the story is, and I think this author went from self-published to now at a publishing house, and this is the self-published version of the book, which I'm never gonna give up because it is such a beautiful, well done cover and cover art and everything, and that is The Sword of Kaigen by ML Wang. She apparently has done an amazing job with this book. It is a chonker though, so it's a little bit intimidating to read. I think it's like 600 and something pages, although that's not too small because I've been reading those kinds of books lately. But anyways, at the beginning of the year, I just felt very intimidated by it, and I also felt like in these types of books where you get really attached to the characters, that I would just get my heart broken, and I have this affinity for getting really attached and getting my heart broken. I'm in the middle of Jade Legacy right now, and my heart is heavy with like this pain that I know is coming, and I feel like this might be a similar type of pain, so I never got to it, but I've just heard way too many good things and I need to read this and just be able to rave about it with everybody else, because I have a very strong feeling this is going to be a like 4 or 5 star for me, and then I'm going to love it. It's also a standalone, so I don't know why I haven't gotten to it, because it would be so easy to just kind of read and have it done and then look for other things that ML Wang has either put out or is going to be putting out in the near future in terms of book. I wish I'd read this one. It's been on my to read list for the last 2 years, and I think it's gonna go on another to read list just because I want it to be a high priority because of how amazing and fascinating and unique the story is supposed to be. All right, so this next one, I kind of wish I had read it, but it's more that I wish I was able to squeeze it in. I am reading this author's backlist or books, and this is one of his debut novels. I just want to know what the story is and want to have it, because since it's his debut novel, it's a little weaker than his other ones, and I just know that I'm going to want to have this read before I jump into his really epic stuff that's probably going to get me super addicted, and that is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This is very controversial, I'll put it at that. There are folks on the booktubes that love this novel, and there are folks on booktube that had a hard time getting through it and are just kind of so about it. I don't know where I'm gonna land. I'm a little worried that I'm gonna land in the so part of things, but either way, I'm intrigued to read it and just kind of see where it goes. I love the floppiness of this US version, but I don't love the cover, so I don't know how that's gonna go. I might just get the UK cover because it's gorgeous. All the UK covers are gorgeous, but I definitely want to read this before I get into Way of Kings, so I'm gonna try to make Elantris my holiday read, though I really wish I could have read it like during the year and not at the end in early January, which is what I'm aiming for this book. So a little sneak peek at my January TBR as well. Either way though, I'm excited to get into Brandon Sanderson, excited to get into more of Brandon Sanderson, especially next year. I got a really good taste of him this year, and I really enjoyed the books I read this year. I think I read 4 in total from him, and it was just a really great time. I'm hopeful for Elantris, but at the same time, I'm on the fence. Let's see what happens, but either way, I'm trying to get through the whole backlist. This next one is one that, I'll be honest, I've been a wimp. I would consider putting it on a TBR, but it never really went on a TBR, and it's just because of the emotional turmoil that the end of this book apparently brings its readers, and that is the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I have been waiting because I have Circe and I really want to read Circe, but I know that I have to read Song of Achilles and Circe will spoil you for certain things in Song of Achilles. I have read and studied some of the Greek history, so I'll probably be familiar with certain things, but again, that was a long time ago, and I don't want to be spoiled for anything, so we're gonna just read this one first. I need to just, I don't know, gain some courage, just buck up and read it. But the reason I haven't been reading this is because I am emotionally intimidated by this book. I don't know if emotional intimidation is a thing, but it's a thing with me in this book, so wish me luck. We're gonna read this, hopefully, eventually, soon. All right, this next one was supposed to be my first ever horror book, and it still probably will be, but I really wish I had read Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. This was a buddy read on Greg LaPerche's Discord, and it was like the horror book read. Oh my gosh, I had every intention of starting it and reading it with them in October because I really wanted to read like my first horror book, and this still is planned on being my first horror book or thriller, scary, creepy book that I read, but I just haven't gotten to it, and that is one that I still have in the works, and that will be part of some content that I create for this channel, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. So I don't want to wait till October to try to read that again. So I'm probably going to end up trying to read it earlier in 2022 if I get to it, fingers crossed, because I do need to and want to diversify my reading a little bit, and I think that a horror thriller would definitely be a great genre for me. This next one also falls in the horror thriller category, but it's one that I want to read as a first book from this author because it's so acclaimed, and that is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. Now, just FYI, Stephen King is very controversial. There is some bad press and things that he's done that have not been so savory, so if you're concerned about that, you should definitely look that up. I have bought a few of his books before realizing that, so I still want to get through some of these and then kind of make my mind up about him as an author, but Pet Pet Sematary is one that I do want to get to. It is so talked about. There's a movie about it that I think was made in the 80s or something, and it's supposed to be like really, really creepy. And since I am a pet owner, apparently it kind of hits you harder if you are a pet owner and pet lover. So this is one that I want to read by Stephen King. This is the first Stephen King that I want to read, and then I will hopefully move on to the other 2 novels that I have from Stephen King that I have not read yet. So that is why this one is on the list. And last but not least, another beautiful fantasy, and this one is on here purely because it's been on so many TBRs since 2020 and I still haven't read this series. I think partially because I'm a little bit intimidated by the second and third ones because they get such mixed reviews, and that is the Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I feel like I'm going to really like R.F. Kuang as an author, but the last book in this trilogy has such mixed reviews on what you read the trilogy for. If you read it for X, then you might love it, but if you read it for Y, you might not love the last one in this series, and that makes me feel very intimidated. So I haven't started this, but I feel like the magical powers and the magic that is used in this is really going to be something that's interesting to me and right up my alley. So Poppy War is definitely one that I really want to get to and really want to read, though I feel hesitant because of the mixed reviews of the last 2 books, and especially the last book. So if you have any advice for Poppy War and just the trilogy in general and as a whole, I would love to hear it because I could definitely use some guidance on this trilogy, if you will. So those were the books that I wish I had read in 2021. Of course, some of them are at the forefront of my mind, so they will and most likely be completed in 2022. Some of them I'm not sure about, but I definitely wanted and had every intention to squeeze these in 2021, and I wasn't able to. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any books that you wish you read in 2021 and if you have any plans to read them next year. If you like this video, please click that like button. That does help support me quite a lot. And if you like this video and you want to see more content from me, please don't hesitate to subscribe.